Good morning, sir. Good morning, classmate. Our report is all about the art in early civilization. Let me introduce you the prehistoric age and where does it begins. The prehistoric era is the witness of that time when there was no record of human activity or writings. Prehistory also refers to the hunter-gatherer lifestyle of the people in that era or period. Prehistory is the fact of origin of human activities and civilization thousand years ago. When it comes to art, prehistory art refers to all art that was created before cultures had developed more complex forms of expression and communication such as a written language. Prehistoric art cannot only be described as art found on cave walls, but also prehistoric sculptures such as the Venus figurines. Techniques and methods were used in the prehistoric arts. Artists that created prehistoric art were limited by the resources available to them at the time they lived. The very first art was made from tools and canvases readily accessible to them, such as cave walls, bones, and pigments such as orc and burnt woods. Not only did they use various pigments to paint on surfaces, but also carved images on bones, stone and walls, as well as made various pieces of clay sculpture and pottery from available material in that region.
Today I'm going to talk about the art during the Paleolithic period. The Paleolithic or Old Stone Age originated from around 30,000 BCE and lasted until 10,000 BCE. It produced the first achievements in human creativity. Arts during this period is a product of climate change. The cold climate drove the early humans to look for shelters, and caves were the most famous types of Paleolithic shelters. These caves defended them from predators and rivals, and protected them from inclement weather. Dwelling in these caves gave birth to the art of cave painting. Paleolithic cave painting demonstrate the capacity of the early humans to give meaning to their surroundings and communicate with others. The most common themes in cave paintings are large wild animals such as bison, horses, and deers. An example of cave painting can be found in Lascaux, France. The most famous section of the cave was known as the Great Hall of Bulls, where bulls, equines, and stags are depicted. Another cave painting can be found in the Cave of Altamira in northern Spain. The cave is famous for its Upper Paleolithic cave paintings featuring drawings and polychrome rock paintings of wild animals and human hands. There were also sculptural works during the Paleolithic period. These mainly consist of beads, figurines, and some decorative utilitarian objects crafted from stones, bones, ivory, clay, and wood. Now, let's move on to the art during the Mesolithic era. The period after the Paleolithic age is known as the Mesolithic period. It dated from approximately 10,000 BCE to 8,000 BCE. During this period, Venus figurines were popular. The term Venus figurines refers to a number of prehistoric statuettes of women found in Asia, Europe, and Siberia. Their height is between 4 and 25 centimeters, and they were carved from steatite, bone, limestone, and ivory. They were named after the Roman goddess of beauty and fertility. These figures are characterized by shared stylistic features such as an oval shape, a large belly, wide set thighs, large breast, and the typical absence of arm and feet. The Venus of Willendorf is a famous example of Venus figurine. While its significance remains obscure, it was initially thought to be a symbol of fertility or the fertility goddess.
So I will discuss what is Neolithic and where it began. The Neolithic period, which began in China around 10,000 BC and concluded with the introduction of metallurgy about 8,000 years later. Neolithic, also called New Stone Age, final stage of cultural evolution or technological development, among prehistoric humans. It was characterized by stone tools, shaped by polishing or grinding, dependence on domesticated plants or animals, settled in the permanent village, in the appearance such craft as pottery and weaving. The Neolithic stage of development was attained during the Holocene epoch, the last 11,700 years of Earth history. The starting point of the Neolithic is much debated, which different parts of the world having achieved the Neolithic stage at different times, but it is generally thought to have occurred sometimes about 10,000 BCE. During that time, humans learned to raise crops and keep domestic livestock and were thus no longer dependent on hunting, fishing, and gathering wild plants. Neolithic cultures made more useful stone tools by grinding and polishing relatively hard rocks rather than merely chipping softer ones down to the desired shape. Neolithic technologies also spread eastward to the Indus River Valley of India by 5000 BCE. Farming communities based on millet and rice appeared in the Huanghe Yellow River Valley of China in the Southeast Asia by about 3500 BCE. Neolithic modes of life were achieved independently in the New World. Corn, maize, beans, and squash were gradually domesticated in Mexico and Central America. Neolithic artwork consists mostly of pottery, terracotta, sculptures, statues, various smaller pieces that were utilized as adornments. Neolithic drawings like engraving and wall paintings, pictograms, and most notably megalithic structures. Neolithic sculpture was also made through new techniques like sculpting from clay and baking it instead of just strictly through carving. Neolithic learned how to cultivate land and domestic animals. Example of Neolithic period or art. Stonehenge is a megalithic monument. Megaliths, literally meaning large stone slabs, had become the most conspicuous, conspicuous form of expression within the European landscape for the people of this time. Indeed, by 2000 BC, Stonehenge had become the ritual centre of southern Britain. Stonehenge, the purpose of this fascinating edifice remains a mystery up to this day and age. Some regards it as a temple, while the others see it as complex calendar, track movements of both the sun and moon. So this is the picture of the Stonehenge.
Before we tackle the three kingdoms of Egyptian era, let me introduce you where does Egyptian era begins. Egyptian civilization developed along the Nile River in large part because the river's annual flooding ensured reliable, rich soil for growing crops. Ancient Egypt was a civilization in ancient northern Africa, situated in the Egyptian Nile Valley in the country Egypt. Ancient Egyptian civilization followed prehistoric Egypt and coalesced around 3000 BC with the political unification of Upper and Lower Egypt under Menes or Menes. In terms of art, Egyptian era art, ancient sculptures, paintings, and decorative crafts produced mostly in the dynastic periods of the 3rd–1st millennium BCE, or before Christ exists, in the Nile Valley of Egypt and Nubia. Egyptians are served those in power as a forceful propaganda instrument that perpetuated the existing framework of society. These are the techniques and methods that they use in the Egyptian art era. Ancient Egyptians created both monumental and small sculptures using the techniques of sunk relief. In the technique, the image is made by cutting the relief sculpture into a flat surface set within a sunken area shaped around the image. What are the high and low relief? Throughout Egypt's long story, sculptors worked with two methods of relief carving, high and low. High reliefs were those carvings that stood out from the surrounding surface, which had been cut away. Low reliefs were images that were cut or sunk into the surface material.
Old Kingdom. In ancient Egyptian history, the Old Kingdom is the period spanning around 2700 to 2200 BC. It is also known as the Age of the Pyramids or the Age of the Pyramid Builders, as it encompasses the reigns of the great pyramid builders of the 4th dynasty, such as King Sneferu, who perfected the art of pyramid building. In the Kings Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, who constructed the pyramids at Giza. Egypt attained its first sustained peak of civilization during the Old Kingdom, the first of three so-called kingdoms, periods followed by the Middle Kingdom and New Kingdom, which mark the high points of civilization in the lower Nile Valley. The concept of an old kingdom as one of the three golden ages was coined in 1845 by the German Egyptologist Baron von Bunsen. And its definition would evolve significantly throughout the 19th and the 20th century. Not only was the last king of the earthly dynastic period related to the first two kings of the Old Kingdom, but the capital, the royal residence, remained at Enebhej, the ancient Egyptian name for Memphis. The Old Kingdom is most commonly regarded as the period from the 3rd dynasty to the 6th dynasty, 2686 to 2181 BC. Information from the 4th to the 6th dynasties of Egypt is scarce, and historians regard the history of the era as literary, written in stone, and largely architectural in that is through the monuments and their inscription that scholars have been able to construct a history. Egyptologists also include that Memphite's 7th and 8th dynasties in the Old Kingdom as a continuation of the administration, centralized at Memphis. While the Old Kingdom was a period of internal security and prosperity, it was followed by a period of disunity and relative cultural decline referred to by Egyptologists as the First Intermediate Period. During the Old Kingdom, the king of Egypt, not called the Pharaoh, until the New Kingdom, became a living god who ruled absolutely and could demand the service and wealth of his project. Under King Djoser, the first king of the third dynasty of the Old Kingdom, the royal capital of Egypt was moved to Memphis, where Djoser established his court. A new era of building was initiated at Saqqara under his reign. King Djoser architect Imhotep is created with the development of building with stone and with the conception of the new architectural form, the step pyramid. The Old Kingdom is perhaps best known for a large number of pyramids constructed at this time as burial places for Egypt's kings. The first king of the Old Kingdom was Djoser, sometimes between 2691 and 2625 BC of the Third Dynasty, who ordered the construction of a pyramid, the Step Pyramid in Memphis, necropolis Saqqara. An important person during the reign of Djoser was his vizier, Imhotep. It was in this era that formerly independent ancient Egyptian state became known as nomes, under the rule of the king. The former rulers were forced to assume the roles of governors or otherwise work in tax collection. Egyptians in this era believed the king to be the incarnation of Horus, linking the human and spiritual worlds. Egyptian views of the nature of time during the period held that the universe worked in cycles, and the pharaoh on earth worked to ensure the stability of those cycles. They also perceived themselves as specially elected people. The height of the Old Kingdom. The Old Kingdom in its royal power reached a zenith under the Fourth Dynasty, 2613 to 2494 BC. King Sneferu, the first king of the Fourth Dynasty, held territory from ancient Libya in the west to the Sinai Peninsula in the east, to Nubia in the south. An Egyptian settlement was founded at Buhan in Nubia, which endured for 200 years. So one example of this Old Kingdom is the Pyramid of Giza. Pyramid Giza is a large sculpture that has the body of a lion and the head of a human, and is believed to represent the pharaoh Khafre. The Old Kingdom included the Third Dynasty until the end of the Sixth Dynasty, which were considered a period of security and prosperity. This was followed by the Seventh and Eighth Dynasties, which were marked by decline, famine, and poverty. The Pyramid of Giza served as tombs, since their main purpose was to provide a resting place for the pharaohs. So I will show you the picture of the Pyramid of the Giza. This one. Ang main purpose daw po nito is to provide a resting place for the pharaoh.
Good day everyone. I am Patil-ao and I am going to discuss about the Middle Kingdom and the New Kingdom. First, we will start with the Middle Kingdom. Okay. What is Middle Kingdom? Middle Kingdom is also known as the period of reunification, ruled by the 11th, 12th, and 13th dynasty. This is a period during the history of ancient Egypt. It lasted from the 1975 BC to 1640 BC. Middle Kingdom was the second peak period of the ancient Egyptian civilization, the other two being the Old Kingdom and the New Kingdom. Okay. The rise of Middle Kingdom. Around 2000 BC, a powerful leader named Mentuhotep II attempted to become king of southern Egypt. Mentuhotep II launched an attack on the north and eventually reunited Egypt under one rule. This began the period of the Middle Kingdom. Why do we call Middle Kingdom as the period of reunification? It is because unification means to unify again, to bring people or things, or to be brought into a unit or coherent whole after a period of separation. For example, reunifying family that separated from the war. It means it's like in the Middle Kingdom. Because of Mentuhotep II, the Egypt reunited and become under one rule. The Egypt become one. Okay, next. In Middle Kingdom, there is a shift on the political hierarchy. Also, art during this period had some references from the Old Kingdom. However, there were some experimentation in terms of style that transpired during this period. In Middle Kingdom, portrait sculptures and fresco paintings that were freely drawn are some of the styles that emerged during this period. Furthermore, in Middle Kingdom, to solve the problem of thieves that plunder the tombs, the Egyptians made rock. They cut tombs by carving out a living rock. The insides of the tomb were still filled with chamber and the hallways were lavishly decorated to celebrate the life of the deceased. Okay, black statue. Black statue is one of the art in Middle Kingdom. Black statues of the Middle Kingdom consisted of a man squatting with his knees drawn up to his chest. Also, we have the woman patrons. Woman patrons head and torso of a noble woman. This belongs to the 12th dynasty. This sculpture, commissioned by a noble woman, provides evidence of gender equality among the elite during the Middle Kingdom. And last, in this period, writing and literature developed as well for the first time in ancient Egyptian history. Oh, for the first time in ancient Egyptian history, in the Middle Kingdom, the writing and literature was developed. Writing was used for entertainment, including writing stories and recording religious philosophy. And, and that's all. Thank you for listening. I hope you have learned some lesson. Okay. Our next lesson is the New Kingdom. What is the New Kingdom? New Kingdom is a period of time during the history of ancient Egypt. It was the ancient Egypt golden age of civilization. Also, it was the time of wealth, prosperity, and power. Dynasties ruled during the New Kingdom. The 18th, 19th, and 20th Egyptian dynasties ruled during the New Kingdom. They included some of the most powerful of all the Egyptian pharaohs, such as Ramses II, Thutmose III, Hatshepsut, Tutankhamun, and Akhenaten. Next. Ramses II. Who is Ramses II? Ramses II is a pharaoh during Egypt's Golden Age. King Ramses II built more monuments and sired more children than any other Egyptian king. Thutmose III, a pharaoh king on conquest, Thutmose III transformed Egypt from an inward-looking kingdom into an expansionist empire. Spoils from his many wars made Thutmose III the richest man in the world. His military accomplishments are recorded on the numerous monuments he built. Expansionist empire is it refers to states obtaining greater territory through military building or colonialism. Next, Hatshepsut. Hatshepsut is considered one of Egypt's greatest pharaohs, man or woman. Hatshepsut brought great wealth and artistry to her land. She sponsored one of Egypt's most successful trading expeditions, bringing back the gold, ebony, the incense from a place called Punt. Next, Tutankhamun. King Tutankhamun, or simply we call him King Tut, ruled, ruled Egypt as pharaoh for 10 years until his death at age of 19. Around 1324 BC, though his rule was notable for reversing the religious reforms of his father Akhenaten, Tutankhamun's legacy was largely negated by his successors. Akhenaten. Akhenaten was the father of Tutankhamun. Akhenaten came to power as the pharaoh of Egypt in either the year 1353 or 1351 BCE and reigned for roughly 17 years during the 18th dynasty of Egypt's New Kingdom. Akhenaten became best known to modern scholars for the new religion he created that centered on the Aten. New Kingdom. The New Kingdom, the art of the New Kingdom had references from both preceding kingdoms. Monuments and sculptures were still linked with death and reverence for the deceased. They started adding mortuary temples in the pyramid that serves as a place of worship of the living. Mortuary temples is an Ancient Egypt mortuary temple is a place of worship of a deceased king and a depository for food and objects offered to the dead monarch. Okay? In the new in the New Kingdom there is a tomb of Tutankhamen. The tomb of Tutankhamen is one of the greatest discoveries from the Egyptian civilization. He became king at a very young age and died at the age of 18. The tomb of Tutankhamun, also known by its tomb number KB62, is the burial place of Tutankhamun, a pharaoh of the 18th dynasty of ancient Egypt in the Valley of the Kings. The tomb consists of 4 chambers and an entrance, staircase, and corridor. Next, who is Howard Carter? Howard Carter discovered the tomb of Tutankhamen. He discovered the tomb in 1922 and astonished that the coffin was made from solid gold. The body of the young king was covered in linen and a gold mask covered his face. Howard Carter was a British archaeologist and Egyptologist who discovered the intact tomb of the 18th dynasty pharaoh Tutankhamun in November 1922, the best preserved pharaonic tomb ever found in the Valley of the Kings. Okay, and that's all. Thank you for listening. I hope you have learned some lesson and God bless us all.